I watched my uncle try to steal my inheritance because I'm a woman. He lost everything instead. My uncle stood in front of the probate judge and said, with complete confidence, that my parents never would have wanted their only daughter to inherit anything of value. That a woman my age, 26, unmarried, childless, couldn't possibly manage land, investments, or the family business. That my father, his younger brother, had always intended for him to be the true heir. The judge asked if he had proof. My uncle smiled. I have something better. I have tradition. I should have known it would come to this. I should have seen it the moment I came home from my parents' funeral and found him already sitting in my father's office, going through the files. My parents died in a car accident on a Tuesday evening in March. A semi-truck ran a red light on a rural highway. They were coming back from a weekend trip to the coast, something they'd started doing more often after I'd moved to the city for work. My mother had texted me a photo of the sunset just 2 hours before the crash. My father had written underneath it, "Your mom says this is what freedom looks like." I was at my apartment when I got the call. A state trooper, voice flat and procedural, told me there had been an accident. That I should come to the hospital. That I should come quickly. They were already gone by the time I arrived. I don't remember much of the next few days. There were forms to sign, arrangements to make, people to call. My mother's sister flew in from another state. My father's colleagues from his construction firm sent flowers and condolences. And my uncle, my father's older brother, Marcus, arrived within hours, moving through my childhood home like he owned it. At the time, I thought he was just trying to help. "You shouldn't be alone right now," he said, standing in the doorway of my old bedroom. "This is too much for one person. Let me handle the logistics. You just grieve." I was too numb to argue. I nodded. I let him make calls. I let him organize the funeral. I let him speak to the lawyers. That was my first mistake. My parents had done well for themselves. My father built his construction company from the ground up, starting as a laborer in his 20s and eventually running one of the most respected firms in our region. My mother was a teacher, but she also managed the family investments, real estate, stocks, a few rental properties. Together, they'd amassed an estate worth just over $3 million. The house, the business, the land my grandfather had left them, retirement accounts, life insurance, and according to their will, written 5 years prior and updated annually, I was the sole beneficiary. Not because I was special, not because I was the golden child, but because I was their only child. It was straightforward, simple, legal. The will had been filed with their attorney, a man named Richard Paulson, who had worked with my father for over a decade. Mr. Paulson called me the week after the funeral and asked me to come to his office. He was kind, patient. He walked me through everything. The estate would go through probate, which could take months. There were debts to settle, taxes to pay. But once it was done, everything would transfer to me. "Your father made his wishes very clear," Mr. Paulson said. "You were the center of their world." I cried in his office. Not from relief, just from the weight of it. The fact that I would now own the home I grew up in, the business my father loved, the future they'd built, but I'd never have them again. Mr. Paulson handed me a tissue. "Take your time. There's no rush. And if you need anything, call me. Your father trusted me. I hope you will too." I did trust him. I just didn't realize my uncle had already gotten to him. 2 weeks after the funeral, I went back to the house to start sorting through my parents' things. I wasn't ready, but people kept telling me it would help, that it would give me closure. I pulled into the driveway and saw my uncle's truck parked out front. I walked in through the side door, unlocked, which was strange, and found him in my father's office. He was sitting at the desk, my father's laptop open in front of him, file cabinets pulled open, papers spread across the surface. "What are you doing?" I asked. He looked up, unbothered. "Going through your father's records. There's a lot to sort out. That's not your job. Someone has to do it. You're not exactly in a state to handle this." "I'm fine. You're grieving." He said it like it was a diagnosis. "And you don't know anything about running a business. Your father wouldn't want you to make mistakes because you're emotional." I felt my chest tighten. Mr. Paulson is handling the estate. You don't need to. Paulson works for the estate. That means he works for the family. And I'm family. So am I. He stood. Slowly. He was a big man, 6'3", broad-shouldered, the kind of presence that filled a room. My father had been tall too, but leaner. Gentler. Marcus was not gentle. You're a kid, he said. You've been living in the city, working some office job, playing at independence. But you've never run anything. You've never managed people or property or money. You don't even know what half of this paperwork means. Then I'll learn. He smiled. It wasn't warm. That's sweet. But this isn't a classroom. This is a multi-million-dollar estate. And your father, my brother, built this with his hands. He trusted me. He always said I was the one who understood the work. Then why didn't he leave it to you? The smile vanished. I'm going to pretend you didn't just disrespect your father's memory by implying he didn't value me. I'm not implying anything. I'm asking why you're in his office, going through his things, when the will clearly states. The will, he interrupted, was written when you were a different person. Before you moved away. Before you stopped coming home for the holidays. Before you made it clear you didn't care about this family. That's not true. Isn't it? He leaned against the desk, arms crossed. When was the last time you visited? When was the last time you asked your father about the business? When was the last time you even pretended to care about the legacy he was building? I felt tears sting my eyes. I hated that. I hated that he could do that to me. I loved my parents, I said quietly. I'm sure you did. But love doesn't mean you're capable of managing what they left behind. And deep down, I think you know that. He walked past me, pausing at the door. I'm not trying to hurt you, he said. I'm trying to protect what your father built. If you care about his memory, if you really love him, you'll let me help. And then he left. I stood there in my father's office, surrounded by his things, and for the first time since the accident, I felt something other than grief. I felt anger. Over the next month, Marcus inserted himself into every part of the estate process. He called Mr. Paulson constantly. He showed up at the house unannounced. He contacted my father's business partners, telling them he was overseeing the transition. He even tried to attend meetings with the probate court, claiming he was acting on behalf of the family. Mr. Paulson tried to reassure me. He has no legal standing, he said. The will is clear. He can make noise, but he can't change anything. But Marcus wasn't just making noise. He was building a case. It started with small comments. Things he'd say to relatives, to family friends, to people at church. She's so young. She doesn't know what she's doing. She's overwhelmed. Then it escalated. She never came home. She didn't care about the family. She doesn't understand the value of what her father built. Then, I think she's going to sell everything. She'll take the money and run. She doesn't have the character to preserve his legacy. And finally, I don't think my brother really wanted this. I think he felt obligated to leave it to her. But if he'd known how she'd turn out, he would have made different choices. People started repeating it. At the repast after the funeral, I overheard my aunt, my mother's sister, say, maybe Marcus is right. Maybe she's not ready for this. At the grocery store, a woman who'd known my father for years stopped me and said, I heard you're selling the business. That's a shame. Your father loved that company. I'm not selling anything, I said. She looked at me sadly. Well, I hope you know what you're doing. I started to feel it everywhere. The doubt. The whispers. The assumption that I was too young, too female, too urban to handle my own inheritance. And then Marcus filed the lawsuit. The petition was filed 6 weeks after my parents' death. Marcus claimed that the will was invalid because my father had been under undue influence when he wrote it, that I had manipulated him, isolated him from his family, and convinced him to disinherit his brother. It was absurd. My father had updated his will annually. He'd worked with Mr. Paulson for years. There was no evidence of coercion, no pattern of estrangement. But Marcus didn't need evidence. He needed a narrative. And the narrative he spun was this. I was a selfish, modern woman who had abandoned my family, rejected traditional values, and seduced my father into giving me everything. Meanwhile, he, the loyal older brother, the one who stayed close, who worked alongside my father, who embodied the family's values, had been cast aside. He filed affidavits from people who barely knew me. A former coworker of my father's who said I seemed distant at a company picnic 3 years ago. A neighbor who claimed I hardly ever visited. A cousin who said my father once mentioned he wished I'd moved back home. None of it proved anything. But it didn't have to. It just had to make me look bad. The court scheduled a hearing. Mr. Paulson told me not to worry. This is a nuisance suit, he said. Judges see this all the time. Disgruntled relatives trying to contest a clear will. We'll present the documents, show that your father was of sound mind, and the case will be dismissed. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Marcus was too confident, too calm. And then I found out why. One of my father's former employees, a man named Joel, who'd worked in the company's logistics department, called me out of the blue. I don't know if I should be telling you this, he said, but I think you should know. Marcus has been meeting with some of the senior guys from your dad's company. He's telling them that if he wins the estate, he'll keep the business running. But if you get it, you'll probably shut it down or sell it off. He's trying to turn them against you. Why would they believe him? Joel hesitated. Because he's offering them job security. And because, well, you're a woman. And a lot of these guys are old school. They don't think a woman should be running a construction firm. I felt sick. Is there anything else? I asked. Yeah. He's been going through your dad's files. I think he's looking for something he can use against you. Some kind of, I don't know, proof that you weren't close. Or that your dad didn't trust you. Did he find anything? I don't know. But he's been at the office a lot. And he's been talking to your dad's accountant. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about Marcus in my father's office. Going through his files. His emails. His records. What was he looking for? And then I realized. It didn't matter what he found. He could create the evidence he needed. The hearing was set for early June. By then, I'd hired my own attorney, a woman named Margaret Ruiz, who specialized in estate litigation. She was sharp, no-nonsense, and expensive. But Mr. Paulson had recommended her, and I trusted his judgment. Marcus is relying on character assassination, Margaret said. He's going to paint you as a negligent daughter and an unfit heir. We need to counter that with facts. Documents. Testimony from people who knew your relationship with your father. We gathered everything we could. Emails between me and my parents. Text messages. Photos. Birthday cards. Letters my father had written to me when I first moved to the city. One letter, written just a year before he died, said, "I'm proud of you for building your own life. That's what I always wanted for you, freedom to choose your own path. Don't ever let anyone make you feel small for being independent." I cried when I read it. Margaret put a hand on my shoulder. This is good. This shows intent. This shows he wanted you to have independence. It contradicts everything Marcus is claiming. But I knew it wouldn't be enough. Because Marcus wasn't just trying to win in court. He was trying to win in the court of public opinion. A week before the hearing, I got a call from a reporter at the local newspaper. She said she was writing a story about estate disputes in farming and construction families and wanted to interview me. I declined. The story ran anyway. It was titled, "When Inheritance Divides, A Family Torn Apart Over Tradition and Change." It didn't name me directly, but it described the case in enough detail that anyone in town would know it was about us. It quoted Marcus anonymously, of course, saying things like, "Sometimes children grow up and forget where they came from. They forget the values that built the wealth they want to inherit." It painted him as the voice of tradition, the keeper of legacy, and it painted me as an outsider, the one who didn't belong. I called Margaret in a panic. "Can we do anything about this?" "No. It's not defamatory. It's just biased. It's going to poison the jury pool." "There's no jury. This is a probate hearing. Just a judge." "Then it's going to poison the judge." Margaret sighed. "We'll address it in court. But listen to me, you can't control the narrative outside the courtroom. You can only control what you say inside it. So when you testify, you tell the truth. You show them who you are. And you show them who your father was. I wanted to believe her. But I was starting to realize that the truth didn't matter as much as I thought it did. The hearing began on a Thursday morning. The courtroom was smaller than I expected. Beige walls. Fluorescent lights. A handful of people in the gallery, mostly Marcus's friends and a few distant relatives. Marcus sat at the plaintiff's table with his attorney, a man named Donald Frost, who looked like he'd stepped out of a 1950s ad for cigars and whiskey. Slicked back hair. Expensive suit. Smug smile. I sat with Margaret. The judge, an older woman named Judge Elaine Cartwright, entered, and we all stood. And then it began. Frost called his first witness, Marcus himself. Marcus took the stand and told a story. He talked about growing up with my father, how close they were, how my father had always valued family, tradition, and hard work, how he'd built the business with Marcus's help, though that was a lie. My father had started the company years before Marcus ever got involved. My brother loved his daughter, Marcus said, his voice heavy with emotion. But he was worried about her. He worried that she'd lost touch with the values he held dear, that she'd become disconnected. Did he ever express concerns about leaving the estate to her? Frost asked.
He did.
Not in so many words, but I could tell. He'd say things like, I hope she understands what this all means. I hope she doesn't just throw it away. It was a lie, but it sounded true. Frost continued. And did your brother ever discuss the possibility of you taking over the business? Many times. He said, I was the only one who really understood the work, the responsibility. Did he ever put that in writing?
No.
But he didn't need to. It was understood. Margaret stood. Objection. The witness is speculating about the decedent's intent without evidence. Judge Cartwright nodded. Sustained. Mr. Frost, stick to facts. Frost smiled. Of course, Your Honor. But the damage was done. Over the next 2 hours, Frost called a parade of witnesses. The coworker, the neighbor, the cousin. Each one testified to the same theme. I was distant. I was cold. I didn't care about my family. One woman, a distant relative I'd met maybe twice, actually said, she never seemed like the type to settle down. I always thought she was more interested in her career than in family. Margaret cross-examined each one. She pointed out inconsistencies. She highlighted how little they actually knew about my relationship with my parents. But it didn't matter, because Frost had planted the idea. And ideas are hard to uproot. Then it was our turn. Margaret called Mr. Paulson to the stand. He testified about the will, about how my father had been clear, competent, and consistent in his wishes, about how there was no evidence of undue influence. Did the decedent ever express any doubt about leaving his estate to his daughter? Margaret asked.
Never.
Not once. Did he ever mention wanting his brother to inherit instead? No. Did he ever seem confused or coerced when updating his will? Absolutely not. He was one of the sharpest men I knew. Frost's cross-examination was brutal. Isn't it true, Mr. Paulson, that you only met with the deceased once a year? For the will updates, yes. So, you didn't see him day to day. You didn't see his relationship with his daughter or his brother outside of a professional setting. No, but... So, you can't really speak to the emotional dynamics of this family, can you? I can speak to my client's intent, which you assume based on a legal document. But you weren't there for family dinners. You weren't there when he confided in his brother. You weren't there when his daughter stopped coming home. I object to the characterization, Margaret said. Withdrawn. Frost smiled. I wanted to scream. Then Margaret called me. I walked to the stand, hand shaking as I placed it on the Bible. Margaret asked me about my relationship with my parents. I told her everything. The trips we took. The phone calls every week. The way my father used to send me articles he thought I'd find interesting. The way my mother would text me photos of the garden. I loved them, I said. I didn't stop coming home because I didn't care. I stopped coming as often because I was building a life. But they were always part of it. Did your father ever express concerns about leaving you the estate?
No.
He told me he was proud of me. He told me he wanted me to have choices. Did he ever mention wanting his brother to inherit? Never. Margaret showed the judge the letter my father had written, the one about freedom and independence. I saw Judge Cartwright read it carefully, and for the first time I felt hope. But then Frost stood for cross-examination. "Miss Collins," he began, "when was the last time you visited your parents before they died?" "About 6 weeks before." 6 weeks. And before that? Maybe 3 months. 3 months. And before that? I don't remember exactly. Would you say you visited them regularly? I called them every week. I didn't ask about calls. I asked about visits. I visited when I could, but not often. I had a job, a life that didn't include them. That's not. Did you ever offer to help with the business? I didn't know anything about construction. Did you ever ask to learn? I hesitated. No, I admitted. Frost smiled. So your father built a multi-million-dollar company, and you never once expressed interest in it. That's not fair. He never asked me to. He shouldn't have to ask. If you cared about his legacy, wouldn't you have wanted to be part of it? Margaret stood. Objection. Argumentative. Sustained. But again, the damage was done. The hearing ended late that afternoon. Judge Cartwright said she'd review the evidence and issue a ruling within 2 weeks. I left the courtroom feeling hollowed out. Margaret tried to reassure me. You did well. You were honest. That counts. But I wasn't sure it did. I spent the next 2 weeks in agony. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the hearing in my head, wondering what I should have said differently. And then one morning I got a call from Joel again. "You need to come to the office," he said.
Now.
Why? Just trust me. I drove to my father's company headquarters, a large building on the edge of town that I'd only been to a handful of times. Joel met me in the parking lot. "I found something," he said. He led me inside, to a storage room in the back. He handed me a box. "Your dad kept personal files here. Stuff he didn't want at home." I was cleaning out some old cabinets and found this. I opened the box. Inside were notebooks.
Dozens of them.
My father's handwriting. Journals. I started reading, and I realized Marcus had made a terrible mistake. My father had kept meticulous records, not just about the business, but about his life, his thoughts, his relationships. And there, in entry after entry, were references to me. "I talked to my princess today. She got a promotion. I'm so proud of her. My daughter visited this weekend. We went hiking. She's so much like her mother, strong, independent, kind." Marcus called again, complaining about how I run things, complaining about my daughter. I don't understand why he's so bitter. And then in an entry from just 3 months before he died, Marcus asked me again if I'd consider making him a partner in the business. I told him no. He's family, but he doesn't understand what I'm building. He thinks it's about money and control. But it's about leaving something good behind. Something my daughter can be proud of. Even if she never runs it herself, I want her to know it's hers. That she has choices. That she's free. I sat on the floor of that storage room and cried. Joel knelt next to me. "This is what you needed, isn't it?" "Yes." "Then use it." I called Margaret immediately. She read the journals. And then she filed a motion to reopen the hearing and submit new evidence. Judge Cartwright agreed. The second hearing was shorter. Margaret presented the journals. She read excerpts aloud. Frost objected repeatedly. "These are private writings. They're not legally binding." "They show intent," Margaret countered. "They showed his state of mind. And they directly contradict the plaintiff's claim that the decedent had doubts about his daughter." Judge Cartwright read the journals herself. And then she asked Marcus a question. "Mr. Collins, did you know your brother kept journals?" Marcus shifted in his seat. I wasn't aware." "Did you ever ask him directly if he wanted you to inherit?" "We discussed it. Did he ever say yes?" Silence. "Mr. Collins, I asked you a question. He didn't need to say it. It was understood." Judge Cartwright closed the journal. "No, Mr. Collins. It wasn't. The ruling came 2 days later. Judge Cartwright dismissed Marcus's lawsuit in its entirety. She ruled that the will was valid, that there was no evidence of undue influence, and that my father's intent was clear. But she didn't stop there. She also ruled that Marcus had filed the lawsuit in bad faith, that he had knowingly misrepresented facts and wasted the court's time. And she ordered him to pay my legal fees. All of them.
But that wasn't the end.
Because while the lawsuit was ongoing, I'd done some digging of my own. I'd hired a forensic accountant to go through my father's business records. And we found something. Marcus had been embezzling. Not a lot. Just enough to be unnoticed. A few thousand here. An equipment purchase there that never actually happened. Payments to vendors that didn't exist. Over the course of 5 years, he'd taken nearly $200,000. I reported it to the authorities. Marcus was arrested 3 months later. He was charged with fraud, embezzlement, and forgery. Apparently, he'd also forged my father's signature on a few documents to cover his tracks. He pled guilty. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison with 2 years suspended. He was also ordered to pay restitution not just to me but to the business. And because he couldn't pay, the court placed a lien on his property. He lost his house. He lost his land. Some of it was sold at auction. Some of it was seized by the state to cover unpaid taxes. He lost everything. I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. But I also felt something else. Relief. It's been 2 years since the lawsuit. 2 years since my parents died. I sold my father's business to a firm that promised to keep the name and retain the employees. Joel is still there.
He's a manager now.
I kept the house. I moved back. It was hard at first. Every room held a memory. But slowly, it started to feel like mine. I turned my mother's garden into something bigger. I planted trees, flowers, vegetables. I started a nonprofit in my parents' name. It provides scholarships to young women pursuing careers in male-dominated fields. I visit their graves every Sunday. And I read my father's journals sometimes. When I miss him. When I need to hear his voice. There's one entry I come back to often. It was written a month before he died. I hope my name knows how much I love her. I hope she knows she doesn't have to be anything other than herself. I hope she knows that everything I built, every success, every dollar, every piece of land, it all means nothing compared to her. She is my legacy. Not the business. Not the money. Her.
I know now, Dad.
I know. Marcus got out of prison 6 months ago. I heard he moved to another state. I heard he's working construction again, for someone else's company. I haven't seen him.
I don't plan to.
Some people said I should forgive him. That he's family. But family isn't just blood.
It's respect.
It's trust. It's love. And Marcus never had any of that for me. I'm 30 now. I'm still single. Still childless. Still living my life the way I choose. And I'm still a woman who owns property. Who manages investments. Who runs a nonprofit. Who honors her father's legacy. Not because I had to prove anything to Marcus. But because I finally proved it to myself. I am enough. I always was. If you're reading this and you're in a similar situation, if someone is trying to take from you, diminish you, erase you, know this. Document everything. Trust your instincts. Find your allies. And don't let anyone convince you that you're too young, too emotional, too female to fight for what's yours. Because you're not. You're exactly who you need to be. And the people who love you really love you already know that. The rest? They'll learn. Or they'll lose. Either way, you'll survive.
I did.